Welcome to Work Smarter, Not Harder. Surveying professionals take a view from above, and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Marnie Nesher, President of the Business Journal News Network. This webinar is being presented by the Business Journal News Network and Microdrones. Some quick housekeeping before we begin. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat function at any time, and our presenter will answer them at the end of his presentation. Please let me introduce Mike Desiak. He's the Marketing Director for Microdrones, and he will introduce our presenter.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Microdrones is a global company. We have a presence here in upstate New York at the Griffiths Business Park and International Airport. We're very excited to be a part of this webinar this morning, and we thank you very much for taking some time to listen in. People think of us as a drone company at first glance, but what we really are is a mapping solutions company, and we aim to provide turnkey solutions to professionals in surveying, in construction, engineering, precision agriculture, and industrial inspection. A question that people always have, they want to talk about drones. Drones are a fun topic, they're exciting, but we like to take some time to find out what it is that you're trying to learn, what challenges you have out in the field, so that we can recommend the right solution if an aerial solution like a drone makes sense. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Chuck Dorgan. He is our Sales Director for the United States, and he's going to take you through a helpful presentation that should be fun and help you decide if this is something that you want to explore. So again, thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Chuck.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate everyone joining us this morning, bright and early. I'm Chuck Dorgan, as he said. I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes, and I basically got like a two-part presentation. The first part of this presentation, I'm going to talk about this is really going to be directed towards folks that are not just looking to get into the drone business from a service provider, but also if you're looking to purchase drones for your company and work within the company as internal customers. So it works for both angles here, but I'm going to talk to you about some of the things you need to consider before jumping in. So with that being said, I'll move to the next slide here. Whoops, there we go. So before we talk about the drones, let's talk more about you. And really what I mean by that is I'll go to the next slide and tell you, most of the time when someone approaches me, they're asking a lot of different technical questions in nature. They're all very good questions. It's not that any of these are dumb questions, but they're questions like how long can a UAV fly? Or what is the payload capacity? Does it have LiPo batteries, or does it have RTK? Is the accuracy of your GPS? How many megapixels does a camera have? Do you have LiDAR? You know, there's tons of questions. They're all great questions. It's not an issue of whether those are good questions to be asking. The problem is I think you have the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse there. There's a lot of other things you need to consider before looking at the technical side of it. So one of the things I start, this happens pretty much on a daily basis for me. Folks will be asking one of those questions on the slide before and I'll stop them right there and go, let's take a step back. What's the problem you're trying to solve, right? You know, so some questions I may ask depending on the nature of your business. What's the volume of that pile? You know, whether it's open mine pit or something like that with sand or gravel where you're trying to measure volume. What's the size of the crack on that blade for like the wind turbine market? And is it bigger than the last time? Is there rust on that pipe for the power companies and structural inspections, things like that? Or is there a hot spot on the power line? How large of an area do you need to map? As Mike mentioned, our core competency is mapping and surveying. What is the accuracy required? These are all questions that you need to really start to think about first before you start getting into the details of what kind of equipment you want to get into. So these are the things that I start with, and understanding what the advantages of the UAS market. Some other things you need to consider are knowing the rules. I'll tell you, things have changed quite a bit in the past 12 months. It's been great. For those who don't know, August 29th, 2016, the FAA opened up a Part 107 regulations, which made things a lot easier to operate in the commercial UAV business in the United States. Before then, it was very difficult. So with 107, there is a test. It's fairly easy to take. It's not a long test. I think it's about 65 questions. You can take it at thousands of test centers across the country. They're generally at some kind of our existing flight school. And once you've taken that test, and gone through the background checks, flying is fairly easy at that point. So they've really helped a lot. But knowing the regulations, where can you fly? You can't fly within 5 miles of Class B, C, D, or E airport without having special waivers and communication with them, and not being able to fly over people in the public without, general public without the proper permission. So knowing the rules is probably the number one thing people need to understand. Flight operations planning is huge, okay? And this kind of goes back to knowing the regulations, because as you do your planning, you start realizing, wow, this site is within 5 miles of a controlled airspace. So, our pilots, first thing I do is say, hey, when I talk to a customer, can I have the location that we're going to fly at? Because that way I pass that on to my operations team, and they review the area, and they make sure that we can fly there safely and within the confines of the law. What to do with the data collected is probably one of the biggest challenges I have to deal with, and that is, so flying and collecting the pictures and doing the mission is probably the easiest part. Then you've done all that, you have all this information, all right? You have images and GPS coordinates and all this other data, but you need to do something with it, because right now it's useless, all right? And if you're doing a volume calculation, that even requires another step after processing. So understanding what to do with the data is a big one. And for those that are individuals that are trying to start like a full service type business, it's great to have some existing clients, and a focus. Just buying a UAV and say you're in business doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have customers who are going to want to hire you. So it's good to have a client base already. Always keep in mind what you're trying to do, right? It's very easy to get caught up in the excitement of the drone market and the technology and all the things that they can do, but it's very important to keep your eye on the goal. Are you trying to survey land for construction projects? Are you trying to determine volume metrics for open pit mines? Are you calculating surface runoff, detect problems with crop health, minimize waste in administrating crop spraying, inspect structures for wear and damage? These are all things that microdrones works in the realm of. One of the things we like to talk about is the DIKO pyramid. It's data, information, knowledge, and organizational intelligence. So the first step is at the base is the data collections, and that's the part everyone thinks about. The other steps, a lot of folks don't even think about that part. They think about buying the drone, flying it, taking pictures, collecting information. But at this point, all you have is a ton of data. After that, you need to process that data. With processing that data, you want to make sure not only you're processing it successfully, but also that the results are accurate. So you want to be very proficient in processing the data. After you've processed the data, you need to have experts around to be able to look at that data and be able to come out with some kind of answer, create some kind of conclusion with the data. It's just because, for example, if I look at something with a multispectral camera, the images look horrible to me. They don't mean anything to someone like myself, but an expert can look at those multispectral cameras and the different layers of colors and be able to tell the health of the crops or even what kind of species of plants they are based on their spectral reflectance. So you need to have the experts in place to be able to determine what they're looking at. And then with all that, you can come up with an answer that, decisions are made wisely and correctly. And that's really what the customer wants. They want that top part. They don't care about what kind of drone you're flying or all the images you've taken. They don't care about any of that stuff. They want the correct answer. So here's an example of that, kind of put it in more of a real-world terms here. The question would be from the customer in this example, what's the volume of that pile? And so the first step you do is maybe possibly install GCPs, which are the ground control points within that open pit mine. and run the mission to collect the imagery and collect all the GPS coordinates during that mission. Once you have all the GCP data and imagery, you're going to put it in some software to post-process it. That's kind of like, now I have this data, I'm going to turn this data into information, right? So you post-process the data, and it creates an ortho or digital elevation model or a point cloud. And with that, an expert can look at that and be able to come up with some educated decisions or educated conclusions, such as a volume analysis. And in this situation, it's 33,450 cubic meters. That's what the customer wants to hear. They don't want to hear that it's 21,125 cubic meters, and they don't want to hear 51,125 cubic meters. They want the right answer. So it's very important that not only you can come up with the right answer, that you can repeat that right answer. So remember, this is a very common phrase, but this is exactly what I'm getting at: garbage in, garbage out. So you want to make sure that you're collecting good data. You want to base your decision making on you don't want to make it on inaccurate data. You want to base it on good decisions, and the best way to do that is get good data. So some small UAS key points I wanted to kind of bring up. You need to educate our clients, or we need to educate our clients, and you need to educate your clients. Your customers don't need to figure out how to solve the problem. They want to find out what they want to know first, and they want to offer a way to solve it. So properly specific questions to them. Make sure you find your niche. I kind of talked about that before. Try not to do everything. Try not to be jack of all trades, master of none. Try to focus on key things. And at Micro Drones, where Mike Desiak and I work, we focus on mapping, surveying, structural inspection, and precision agriculture. We don't get into everything else in the marketplace. There's endless possibilities with the UAV market, and we try to focus on what we're good at and keep it to that. So I talk to a lot of my customers about doing the same thing for them. Try not to do too many things poorly. Try to do a few things very well. Also keep in mind safety. A lot of the times you're doing this is because it's more safe. So keeping people off of tall structures, keeping people off of crumbling dams. We did a project up in Canada where there was a dam that we could not, or not we, but the Canadian Parks and Recreation did not want to put any people in danger by putting them on the dam to survey it. So they hired Micro Drones to actually map it using our drones, and we were able to create a 3D point cloud model that would give them the ability to put together a plan on how to restore that dam. Flexibility. Small UASs allows you to map and survey in the morning and do structural inspections in the afternoon. Flexibility is a big thing. It's nice to have, because in the traditional methods, such as mapping, you'd hire a manned aircraft weeks in advance to map an area, and depending on the weather, they may or may not be able to do it. So flexibility becomes a key point. And that kind of leads into access to your data. Being able to collect data more conveniently and quickly, and be able to react faster to demands from your customer. Cost, the hardware, and this is a key point here, is cost. The cost of your hardware is going to be the smallest investment in the total UAS business. Maintaining flight operations and personnel will actually exceed what your investment is in the equipment. So now we'll talk a little bit about Micro Drones. As Mike had talked about a little bit, Micro Drones has over 1,000 customers worldwide that trust us. We've been in business since 2005. We're all around the world, and we are now have a very big presence in the United States. So very excited to be part of this team. Made to deliver reliable tools in tough jobs, whether it's precision agriculture, land development, research and search and rescue for like hostage and fugitive situations we get involved in, infrared for low light or night searching, natural disasters like fires, floods, hurricanes, leak detection for pipelines. We actually get into mapping automobile accidents, situational awareness with law enforcement for festivals, street fairs, things like that. And then our core competency, which is surveying and mapping. So let's talk about drones for a little bit now. So micro drones, our actual airframe is engineered and built in Germany. It has some of the highest reliability and flight stability in the marketplace, starting with our carbon fiber airframe, which basically anything that's painted with that high automotive paint you see there in white, that's all carbon fiber. It's heat, rain, and cold, dust resistant, very durable in harsh climates. The airframe actually is interesting enough, flies in a plus formation, which if you think about it, most drones you see with the quadcopters out there, they fly in what's called an X formation, where they have two props going forward. By design, micro drones is designed to fly in a plus formation, which gives us more stability and better efficiency with our batteries. Problem is, well, not the problem, but the reason why you don't see more doing it's a little bit more difficult to develop something like that. But once you've mastered it, like micro drones has, you get more stable flight and longer flight times. Our motors are designed and specifically for micro drones. They are rated up to 10,000 hours of flight time. And just to put that in perspective for you, most typical drone motors need to be replaced or serviced within 50 to 60 flight hours. So you compare that to the 10,000 flight hours, it's not even comparable. It's a big difference there. They fly at a very low RPM. And that's why you see very big blades on our drone, that they fly at like half the speed that your typical drone motors would fly at. It's very quiet, very efficient, and very subtle, I'll say. Our operating system and software is all built by micro drones, continuously improving it in-house, and it's nice because we can react very quick to any changes we need to make. So I'll talk about the offerings we have at the airframe level first. The first one is our smallest. It's the MD4-200. It was introduced in 2005 when the company was started, which in this industry is a lifetime. We're industry leaders as far as quadcopters go. This airframe is 21 inches in diameter. It weighs 2.4 pounds and has a payload capacity of 0.6, so almost a little over a half a pound. Has a cruising speed of almost 18 miles per hour and has an endurance of 15 to 25 minutes, depending on weather. Wind plays a big factor in it. So the more wind you have, the less flight time you have. The MD4-1000, which is what I consider our workhorse, probably the most popular one from our customer standpoint worldwide, is almost 41 inches in diameter, weighs 13 pounds, has payload capacity of 2.5 pounds, all carbon fiber again, has a cruising speed of 26.8 miles per hour, and has an endurance of 30 to 45 minutes, which has been industry leading. It's one of the things that really differentiates us from the competition. And then we have the third one that was introduced in January of 2017, just a couple months ago, the MD4-3000. It's almost 71 inches in diameter. It weighs 33 pounds, so this thing's a beast. But it can carry up to 11 pounds. Has a cruising speed of 16 meters per second, which I don't actually know what that is in miles per hour. It has an endurance of, it's actually below in the slide, 35 miles per hour is cruising speed, and endurance of 45 minutes. This application was just recently introduced. We have a couple different packages we're going to be putting underneath this thing later in 2017. Very excited, and so is the marketplace. I got lots of folks asking me about this. So now let's give these drones some meaningful employment, meaning let's make them do something to make us money, because right now they're just UAVs, not UASs. UAV is an unmanned aerial vehicle, where UAS is unmanned aerial system, meaning it has a payload and it's doing something, collecting data. Well, I'll kind of start and go in the same direction I was going with the airframes. Our MD Mapper 200, which is the smallest of the three that I showed before, has the capability of mapping up to 74 acres on one battery charge. It uses a Sony QX10 camera, which is, I believe, an 18 megapixel camera, which is mounted on a carbon fiber nadir mount. It has flight time of 20 to 25 minutes, as I mentioned before, and it's really used for mapping, surveying, and we actually have a second package called Plus M, which is our multispectral package. It has a red edge, MikeSense red edge multispectral camera you can put underneath it, kind of popular with the farming community. And these are the things that come with this package, which is the camera I was telling you, the lightweight Sony QX10 camera, which is a 20 megapixel digital data link, which is nice because when you're flying a large area, it's easy to quickly lose track, visual sight of that thing. Not that you're supposed to fly out of beyond visual line of sight, but sometimes it's hard to pick it up in the sky when it's far away. You can look at your tablet and see exactly where it is in your mission. And then the MDRC controller, which controls not just the UAV, but also the payload underneath it, and also gives you the vital telemetry data real time as you're flying. The MD Cockpit software allows you to monitor the flight and also plan it. And that software, by the way, is free. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy a Microdrones to review, or if you want to take a look at the MD Cockpit software, you're more than free to go out onto, there's two ways of getting it. There's a tablet version, which is the preferred version. It's out there for Android, so if you have an Android tablet that is operating system Marshmallow or newer, you can go out to the Google Store and download it for free and take a look at it. It's pretty cool. We also have a desktop version that runs on Windows 7 and 10. And, so it's out in the Microsoft world, but shopping bag. But the thing is with it, it's not as easy to use. So I don't recommend someone going out and downloading that first. It's very detailed. You get into all the details of the flight. You can pretty much tweak anything you need to do. The tablet version is a more preferred version. When you're out in the field, you pull up the tablet, you can take a look at the space you're in using Google Earth and be able to map a mission within literally 10 minutes. It's very easy. That's even a sales guy can do it. So, moving on to the next one. So we're going to talk about the mapping package for the MD4 1000. It's called our MD Mapper 1000. Again, this aircraft can fly 35 to 45 minutes. It can actually map up to 148 acres on one battery charge. But I must warn you, that all determines on the weather. If you have a lot of wind, it really cuts into that. So you got to plan for that. One of the nice things about our airframe, though, is you can fly in very windy conditions. We did a mapping mission. It was at least 25, 30 mile per hour winds, and I could see the actual camera that's hanging down below it on the nadir mount almost tilted the entire time. But we still were able not only to fly the mission, we got great results from it despite the wind. So as I kind of mentioned before, you can fly in harsh weather, even on days where there's rough wind, which I mentioned. You actually can fly in the rain. You don't typically want to map in the rain because the results won't be that great. The reflectance of the water on the ground makes the results not that great. But if you happen to be in a large mission and you get caught in the rain, at least you don't have to worry about your equipment being damaged or destroyed. So that is great, especially when you're out in the Midwest in the middle of a cornfield doing some mapping. It's not uncommon for weather to come up faster than we can get the drone back. So having that capability is great. Most of the things in the package are similar to the MD4, the MD Mapper 200. So I'll just kind of point out the things that are different. This package comes with a Sony A63 camera. It is a 24 megapixel camera, full frame commercial off the shelf camera. This airframe also comes with landing assist. Landing assist is really nice because it helps you land. It's just what it sounds. The landing assistance, it helps land the drone, especially very nice when it's very windy out. It's automated final approach landing is what they call it. And then the other things like the data downlink and the controller and the software are all the same. So we have commonality across their platforms because we have lots of customers that own multiple micro drones. So if you own a 200 and a 1000, the software, the planning software, the controller, all the things are the same between the two. So you don't have to learn how to fly a new package. Probably our most popular, most talked about package in the industry right now, it's really started to create a buzz, is the MD Mapper 1000 DG. So it's still the same airframe as the MD Mapper 1000, but it has the DG, which is called direct georeferencing. It basically helps cut your missions almost in half as far as time and data, and I'm going to get into some of the details. Some of the things that make this different from the MD Mapper 1000 is the Sony RX1 R2 camera. Again, a full frame, off-the-shelf commercial camera, 42 megapixel, and it's paired with a lightweight, vibration-free nadir mount to capture the images you need. Attached to the back of the camera is a APX-15 board, which is manufactured by Planix. It's a compact single board module with a survey-grade GNSS receiver and a precisely calibrated IMU for mapping. So basically what you're doing here is you're getting all 6 of your exterior orientations during the flight. So there's fewer ground control points. You don't even need ground control points with this system. So it saves time, and also in hazardous areas where you don't want to put people on the ground in danger. To install ground control points, you can avoid it altogether. You have less side lap, so it creates more productivity, and by getting that more productivity, you can go up to 198 acres on one battery charge. So some of the things that I already mentioned, no ground control points and less side lap. Obviously, not only is that going to reduce your time with flying, but it's also going to reduce post-processing data. And I'm going to show you that in a second. You're going to be processing less data, which is nice. And this is the things that I just kind of mentioned. There's the full frame camera, the Sony camera there, 42 megapixel camera, and then we take the Planix APX-15 board and we house it in a carbon fiber box. And it's mounted directly behind the camera and is completely calibrated in our factory in Montreal before it leaves the door, before it goes out the door to the customer. And then this whole system has its own GNSS antenna on top of the one that the drone has. So this is kind of a good visual I like to look at. The MD Mapper 1000 on the left, that's the flight path you would be taking to map that area. So you can just see really quickly the one on the left is flying a lot more passes. It needs more side lap in order to get that survey grade results. On the right, you only have to fly it that many times to get the same results, or better, actually. So you can obviously see that not only is the flight time going to be less, but you're also taking less images, which all that multiplies throughout the entire process. So direct georeferencing, what is it? It's the process of basically determining the exterior orientations, X, Y, Z, kappa, phi, delta, of each image without needing to do aerial triangulation techniques like your typical mapping processes would be. So it eliminates GCPs, improves collection of the efficiency by reducing side lap, improve point matching efficiencies when you use the aerial triangulation. This ability to corridor map, which I'm going to show an example in a second, and ability to map hard to access areas like that dam up in Canada that I mentioned earlier. So there's a little bit of redundancy there, again showing the differences side by side and kind of driving that point again about the side lap and the exterior orientations. This compares the three side by side, and one of the things I like to bring this up because I get asked all the time, do you have RTK? I say, well, no, we don't use RTK, and it's kind of a industry buzzword, so I'll get the puzzled look like, well, why don't you have RTK? Well, the reason we don't have RTK is actually fairly old technology. It's just kind of coming back because of really good marketing. It's been marketed as new technology, but it's not really all that new. And if you look at it the side by side, you still have to fly with the same side lap of 80/80 front and side lap of 80/80. So your flight path is the same as just aerial triangulation. You also need GCPs, maybe not as many with RTK. As you can see with the white triangles on the left, there's quite a few ground control points. And in the center example there with RTK, you have 5 still. And then you always, image blocks are always needed, and self-calibration is typically done. If you look at the far right with the direct georeferencing, you have 1 GCP, which is nice to have. You can use it as a checkpoint to check your data. Your side lap and front lap are extremely reduced, which is also creating less images to process. So this is kind of how I equate it. So you look at it, the time savings, laying out GCPs. This is, we actually went through this process to come up with these numbers. So it took us 2 hours to install GCPs. With the Mapper 1000 DG, we didn't have to invest any time in installing GCPs. The flight time for the Mapper 1000, or if you're doing RTK, would be the same. It was 35 minutes for this particular example. With the DG, it was cut in more than by half, by 15 minutes, just because we didn't have to fly as many laps to take as many images. And then this kind of goes to the other piece with the data processing. With less images, you have less time processing, and that becomes a big factor. One of the things that customers will ask me all the time is like, well, I want the best camera. I go, why do you want the best camera, or the highest megapixel? You want the camera that actually gets you what you need. Because what happens is if you use quote unquote the best camera, per se, you're creating these very large files. These image files are huge, and it just creates a lot more time, and you're uploading to your system from the field to a server somewhere, and then downloading from that server to your data processing computer, and then processing the data. So it just multiplies throughout the entire process. So it's important to understand what actually you really need, what density do you really need. So this is a success story of the DG that's actually very recent. It was in late January. We flew a mission for one of our customers in Chile, and it was a mine. We didn't have any planning. One of the things that really, the results that really made us happy was it wasn't that we were given a couple of weeks time to plan for this. They kind of threw it at us when we got there. So we weren't able to put any ground control points. They wanted us to map this wall, this corridor mapping of I think it was a road/wall that they had going along the outside of the mine, 5-kilometer retaining wall. And altitude was 2,500 meters, which also presented a challenge. We actually had to, at that elevation, go from a 2-bladed prop to a 3-bladed prop, which is something we consider at about 2,200 meters. You need extra lift because the air is so thin up there. So we actually had gone to a 3-bladed prop. It was very, very windy, very cold, and we got very good results without even putting in ground control points. So for an example, here's a profile of this. Here's an imagery on the right, and then on the left just gives you the elevation profile. It got such good deep detail of the elevation model. You can even see where that arrow points to the pipe. That pipe's 24 inches in diameter, and we were able to pick that up on the elevation model without ground control points. So very happy. The customer's very happy with it. They ended up purchasing the DG system, and they are actually one of our resellers in South America. So this kind of shows you the data for it. There was, if you notice, one of the checkpoints, checkpoint number 2, seems to have some outlying errors there. Don't know what was going on there, but other than that, the checkpoints show very good results in accuracy. So what's included? It's pretty much the same thing across the board with everything. It has the other packages. It has the landing assist. Has the the software for the tablet. It does come with a Planix post-pack UAV software, which is required as a very short step after you've done the mission for geotagging. Use the same controllers and digital downlink, data link. It does come with the Planix APX15 IMU, and it comes with a better camera, the Sony RX1 R2 camera. So let's review the 3 packages I've talked about. You know, there's the one package with the MD4 200, and then the other two packages are on the MD4 1000. And you can kind of look across the top and see the differences. You know, like for area covered 74 acres, with the 1000 you see 140 acres. And a perfect example of showing you how much more efficient the direct georeferencing is. We're getting 198 acres out of one battery charge using the exact same airframe. So you're using the same battery, same airframe, but with the DG, you're getting a lot more. It comes with better cameras, you can see. Imagery formats, they're all using JPEGs. Your GSD, which is, you know, pixels per centimeter. 1.3, we're getting 1.3 inch, we're getting 3.2 centimeters a pixel for the MD4 200 mapper. Getting 2.4 centimeters with the MD Mapper 1000, and we're getting 1.6 with the MD Mapper 1000 DG. Moving on to the next slide. I'm going to talk shortly, just briefly, about the MD Mapper 3000 DG. It's not available for sale, but it's coming up this year, so I do want to bring it up. Again, this payload, this package carries up to 11 pounds. Operating height is up to 2.5 miles up, even though you're not allowed to fly that high. FAA requires anything under, any UAV under 55 pounds has a max ceiling of 400 feet, something you would learn as you're taking your Part 107 test. And it still has a flight time of 45 minutes. So this is coming out later this year. There's actually a couple things that we're going to put underneath it, not just the mapping DG package, but we're also going to have a LiDAR package coming out. Again, and I just like to bring this up. It's redundant, but this is one of the things that's I like to brag about. All of our platforms, all of our airframes have commonality, being the software and how you control them. They're all interchangeable. They're the same. All of our payloads are interchangeable. Doesn't mean you can take a payload out underneath from the 3000 that weighs 8 pounds and put it underneath the 200 because it exceeds the payload capacity. But the mounts are all the same, and you can interchange them within minutes. If you just a quarter turn to take one off, and then a quarter turn to put the next one on, hook up the wire harness, and you're good to go. So the other thing I like to talk about is the flexibility. So you go out and you buy a mapping package, and very often when you're out, this happens a lot with open pit mines, you're out mapping, and someone at the site sees you doing that and goes, hey, did you inspect that structure over there, for example? Next thing you know, you're looking at other things to do with your drone, with your UAV. So we offer several different packages that you can put underneath our airframe, as mentioned before, but like the plus. So we're using this naming convention. This one is plus M, stands for multispectral. This is a payload you can put underneath any of the 3 platforms. It's designed for monitoring nutrients and moisture levels, and it's really for farming and agriculture. Sometimes characterizing soil and vegetation cover. You can actually, if you know enough about what you're doing and looking at the reflectance in the imagery, that you'll be able to identify different species of plants and things like that. Whoops, I went too far. So then the plus T is our thermal option. Also, you can put underneath all 3 of the platforms, and it's inspect and detect problems with solar plant panels, identify heat loss in roofs. We have customers using them to identify hot spots for power line inspection, and then when the law enforcement for search and rescue. Plus I is one of our most popular accessories. It's available for the MD4 1000 at this point, and I guess it'd be available for the 3000 later this year because of the payload capacity there. You can't put this underneath the 200, it weighs too much. But there's a lot of different things you can do with the Plus I. As you can see, the dam inspection in the upper right there, that is the dam in Canada. We used this mount to get the oblique imagery that we needed to get the 3D modeling. So a lot of folks that are into mapping and survey are interested in this for oblique imagery. or just doing structural inspections of power lines, windmills, buildings, dams. There's a lot of different things you can use the plus I for. So it's one of our most popular options. So with that, I'm going to conclude. That's all I want to talk about, and I want to be able to take some time to field any questions any of you guys might have. I don't know if I spoke too fast, but this is the time to ask me questions if you have any.
Yeah, so there is one question. Which is the precision of DG? Centimeter or millimeter?
Centimeter. So it's you're looking at about 1.6 centimeter accuracy with it. And we're getting that pretty consistent between 1.6 and 1.7. I guess that answers the question.
Okay. So far, that's the only question that's been posed. If anybody else has a question, please feel free. Oh, here's one. Feel free to just post it in the questions. Who and how do you notify when you're flying within 5 miles of the airport?
You start with the FAA, and after the FAA, you talk with the FAA. You also have to talk to the control tower. And I believe, I'm not an expert on this piece, but I believe the FAA will get you in contact with the control tower, and then at that point, you're directly contacted with them. So the FAA is the first place to start, and then they will, like I said, get you in touch with that airport. You also have to submit a NOTAM. And our pilots are actually the experts with that. They do all the, when you do the training, they talk to you about that kind of stuff. So, is there any, what kind of challenges out there that you guys have? I mean, everyone who's here this morning obviously has an interest. So, feel free to put in a question of like one of the things that you're interested in using UAVs. Are you using them today, or are you just looking to get into them? And what kind of challenges that you're facing that might interest you in getting into this industry? So if you have any questions, feel free to ask those.
One more. Yeah. Another question, does your mapping software work with DJI products?
That's an interesting question because, so DJI is a competitor that makes airframes themselves. So what we offer is the system, but what we've done is what comes out of our system, meaning the airframe, the sensors, the results that come out of that, is agnostic. It could go into any software out there. We don't sell post-processing software per se, so some examples would be Pix 4D or AggieSoft or Trimble's UAS Master. Those are all different kinds of software that can take our data and crunch it, which is the same thing for DJI. DJI's software, data that comes out of their system would be agnostic as well. So we kind of are doing the same thing. We're collecting data.
And we actually have a special offer going right now that if you are using any manufacturer's products right now, and you would like to have us take a crack at the post-processing of it and to help you determine how you might do it better to achieve better results, that's something that we are willing to help you with for participating in this call today. So if that's something you're interested in, Chuck Dorgan's contact information is there. Send him a note. The data has to be in certain formats and meet certain requirements, but we will attempt to help you post-process that and show you what you might do differently during your data collection and how you might get better data to produce the result that you need. So, jot down that that's a free offer that we're willing to help you out with.
Great point, Mike, and I'll take it a step further. We'll process your data for you, but we'll also, if you're close enough and we can put it together, we'll be happy to come out with our system and fly the same mission, process the data, and you can look at it side by side.
Yeah, we love doing demos as well. So we've got a pilot right in Rome, New York, so he certainly can travel. Most of the folks on this call are from the upstate New York area, and we would love to come out and show you what we can do.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. The next one is, do you have the registration policy in each of your drones, and is it your responsibility or the buyer?
It's the buyer. So with Part 107, you register your drone as a serial number. You register it with the FAA. we can assist you with that. It's not difficult to do by any means, but it's something that the buyer does with the drone once they've purchased it.
Okay. And then somebody asked, could you please talk about the limitations associated with RTK?
Limitations, well, RTK is simply, I can tell you, one of the things is with RTK is you don't really need to be processing this stuff real time anyways. So that's one of the questions is what's the advantage to using RTK is you're going to be processing a lot of the data after you get back to the office. You're not really processing it in the field real time. So it's one of those things, and on top of it, you still need to have ground control points in place. So if you're comparing it to our direct georeferencing package, we don't need ground control points. And we also don't need to have the 80% side lap, where our RTK requires that still.
I think that adds up to, is it 5 hours
yeah,
per time savings?
Yeah, yep. You know, through the example that we've actually we've ran thousands of tests. Actually, we got there's a case study coming out from Navmatica. Dr. Mustafa is putting it together with where he's ran over 800 different scenarios with processing the data, showing the most optimal elevation, speed, and front and side lap. So that's coming out in weeks, and I'm very excited to be able to read that.
And one of the things Chuck can help take you through if you decide to talk with him and to learn more, and you can tell it's a very consultative approach, is how much time you can save depending on the number of projects you do. Obviously, the cliche is that time is money. Over the course of a year, if you're saving somewhere between 5 to 10 hours per project times the number of projects that you do, both in data collection and post-processing, that adds up very, very quickly. And that's kind of our joke and our clever headline is, what are you going to do with all your free time? Are you going to see more clients or maybe take up a hobby or, enjoy your life more? I don't know. But that's one of the key values of what we're doing.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Okay, thank you, Chuck. Thank you to everyone for attending this morning. We will be sending out the link to the presentation in the next few days. We hope the content was informative, and thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.